What does that mean? It means, first of all, interdependence. New technology enables new business possibilities. New business opportunities drive technology advances. What we're seeing, I believe, we've seen it for a few years now, it's not that new, but I think what's happening in terms of the importance is that the technology is becoming much cheaper, it's becoming much more powerful, and is becoming much more embedded in the business. So technology enabling us to do new things in the business, but at the same time, the business driving us in the technology terms to do different things with the technology. That back and forth is a symbiosis. Reintegration of the silos within our businesses, the silos between IT and the business, the silos within IT. Tough task. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but there is no doubt in my mind that as we have opened up our businesses to the web, that there is no way that we can continue to have these silos. The web customers will see the breaks, will see the differences, and it doesn't make sense. Coherence becomes mandatory. And then we need to look at the people skills, the business people and the IT skills that need to come together. I call this a crossover. The business people needing to understand sufficient IT to recreate the business with new technology. The IT people needing business acumen to see how to satisfy business needs in new ways with emerging technology. So it means for the IT folks here, becoming much more aware, much more integrated with what the business needs to do. Because the role of IT becomes the visionaries about the technology. And for the business people here, it means understanding enough about technology so that they can actually see the possibilities that the technology offers. Those two sides need to come together. We may need organizational change. We may need cultural change within our organizations to make that happen. But it has to happen in order to create this system. And let's be honest, the system has been growing over the years. I forgot about this last picture. Beauty and the Beast. A lovely picture from the 1800s. Beauty and the Beast. Business and IT have been seen as Beauty and the Beast, but we all know the fairy tale, the beast turned into a prince. So, IT folks here, get ready to turn into princes and princesses. So I wanted to show some examples of this BizTech ecosystem in process, in progress. This example, as you know, dates back to the early 90s. So this BizTech ecosystem, even though I'm proposing it as a new idea, you know nothing is new in IT, it's all just recycled and reinvented. But the idea is that if we look back to the 80s or the 90s, we saw that the introduction of business intelligence started to change the way retail worked. Now, you can argue, if you come from outside the business intelligence, that it was the introduction of the point-of-sale systems. But the point-of-sale systems were gathering data, and the data that they gathered enabled the reinvention of retail. If you look at retail as it runs today, from the scanning systems all the way through to the warehouse and all the way back to the manufacturer, the way that that system works is entirely different from the way retail worked 25, 30 years ago. That move, which started with taking data from the scanning systems and starting to use it to understand sales, to understand what was moving off the shelves, and then to bring it into stocking the shelves, and then to bring it into the supply chain, all of that came from the innovation of people like Walmart, particularly, with their BI systems playing with the data. So that's one example, an old example of the BizTech ecosystem. Outside of the business world in a way, but very much impacting the business world, has been, of course, the emergence of the web and information on the web. When you think about it, if you go back, those of you who are old enough, go back a few years and think about how did we research stuff? How did we do business? How did we figure out what was the next best thing? How many of you have seen a salesperson for Encyclopedia Britannica wandering around the streets? I don't know whether they ever saw it in Germany, but it used to be very common in the UK and Ireland and the US. Encyclopedia Britannica do not produce their printed encyclopedia anymore. The last one was produced last year. That's an end of an era, isn't it? You might think that the web is recreating the whole library effect. It's the idea, if you like, recording and researching reality has now moved to the web. This is the new 3 O's. Wikipedia has over 20 million articles in the English version. I don't know if you've ever heard of Vannevar Bush. He wrote an article back in 1945, which was called "The Way Things Will Be," or the way we may think. And he published this picture. This picture he called a memex, and he envisaged that people would have on their desks, underneath their desks, the ability to scan documents into microfiche, was what he saw at the time. And then they would have the ability with this complicated button thing on the right-hand side to sort of annotate the document and make references and cross-references to it. In a sense, it was the beginning of the World Wide Web and hypertext markup language. All goes back to that paper from 1945. So it's taken us a while to get there. But it's here. It's here, and if you look at the way information on the web is dealt with, we have essentially replaced authority with democracy, which is a bit scary, really, because actually, who vouches for the truth anymore? Encyclopedia Britannica used to vouch for the truth. Wikipedia, you read that stuff at your own risk. Right? You have to take your own decisions about the validity and the correctness of the information. And there's huge questions that we need to deal with as a society and business with regard to copyright and intellectual property that are only beginning to open up as all of the information that has ever been created goes digital and is on the web with varying degrees of availability, with varying degrees of privacy, with varying degrees of security. I don't know what the answer is, and I don't think people are thinking enough about the problems involved in this. But hey, you guys in BI, this is actually stuff that you need to be thinking about going forward. Because as we've seen over the last couple of years, and I'm going to use the dreaded phrase, big data, as we've seen over the last couple of years, what big data is showing us is that most of the information that we're going to deal with is no longer the stuff that comes from our operational systems in nice, neat tables with nice, clean ETL. Most of this stuff comes from the web. It's unstructured, I hate that word. It's soft, it's multi-structured, it's images, it's text, it's the sort of stuff that's on this picture. And we're going to have to deal with it as part of BI. But I want to move a little bit beyond the hype of big data, because the big data hype at the moment is about, marketing stuff. It's about taking marketing information and figuring out who's talking to whom, and how can we sell this extra dongle on this new widget that we want to. I was listening to a presentation a few months ago from an American software company, who shall remain nameless, whose business is to analyze the Twitter stream that is associated with particular programs on TV. Now, I understand that people are sitting with their third devices, I think it's called, tweeting to one another about, hey, did you see that so-and-so did such and such to on whatever program? And this is all about advertising dollars or euros. And I have to, I mean, maybe I'm on a soapbox, but guys, I mean, there must be better things to do with our dollars than chase advertising and chase marketing. And I apologize to the marketing people who are here, but there must be better things to do with our dollars, like, hey, world peace, hunger, fixing some of the problems with the environment. I think that as we get a little bit more mature with big data, we start to do things differently in our businesses, some of which, hopefully, depends on you, is actually going to help humanity to get through the next few years. But to come back to the sort of the day-to-day stuff, here's an example of big data changing the way that business works. The possibility to take information coming from your car, from the sensors in your car, the braking sensors, the acceleration sensors, the turning sensors, all of that from your car, and using it to create pay-as-you-drive insurance. I don't know if this is widespread in Germany yet, or in many parts of Europe. It's talked about and certainly is in progress in the US. Now, if you think about this, I'm not an insurance person, but if you think about this, this actually is completely different from what insurance is about. Insurance, as it was envisaged in the 1600s, 1700s, was about spreading risk. Actually, what we're doing here with the insurance companies is avoiding risk, and we're trying to create money for the insurance companies so that they can pay their shareholders. But we've actually forgotten about spreading risk. Now, that may be good or bad, I'm not making a judgment, but what this does is it completely changes the way that the insurance industry works. When you can do this sort of data mining, when you can do this sort of analysis of data on the fly, you can begin, as of course they're trying to do, to influence behavior, to influence people to drive more safely. But of course, you know, this is only the start. I mean, as you get a little further down the road, you begin to see, oh, we may be doing away with the driver entirely. We may have driverless cars being controlled from, you know, satellite connections and sensors on the road. Then we have another interesting question about who's responsible if anything goes wrong? Where does insurance stop? So what's happening here is technology is reinventing business, and business is causing us to recreate technology in new ways in order to drive new